Hello, welcome back to Hunter Tune. Today we're going to be working on a Civic Si, and I'm going to be starting to install the turbo kit on that car. Unfortunately, I actually deleted the clip that I wanted to start the video off with. I've had a lot of footage on my camera lately that I just haven't edited, and, well, I messed up. So, unfortunately, I did do a couple dyno pulls with the car when it was all motor, and I wanted to start the video off with that before we dove into, doing the turbo kit and stuff like that, but I messed up and I accidentally deleted it, so it's gone forever. So I'm gonna start the video off with working on the car and just starting to tear it apart, but yeah. Anyways, just wanted to apologize about that. I did have an intro for this video, but it got messed up, and yeah. But here's a jet boat that I picked up. It's pretty sweet. I've been enjoying this. It's been summer in Wisconsin, and I picked up a jet boat. Thing is super cool. Yeah, I got it for a really good deal. Had some carburetor issues. I fixed it all up, and me and the lady friend have been going out on the lake and having a grand old time. But anyways, back to the work. Let's check out this Honda Civic. Hello, welcome back to Hunter Tune. Today we're going to be installing a turbo kit from Rev 9. And just wanted to kind of show you some of the process. Alrighty guys, so we got the car on the dyno and we did a couple baseline runs. The car ended up making between 185 and 190 horsepower to the wheels in about 85-degree heat. So definitely could have made a little bit more, I think, because this is a B20 VTEC. And I'm not sure what's done to the engine, but it does have cam gears on it. And the only thing that I did notice on the dyno, I didn't tune it or anything like that. I just did a couple baselines to see where we're at before I touched the thing. And up top, it definitely was like falling off a little early. And this thing made a lot of like mid-range power. And the reason being that it did that is because this car has a set of aftermarket cam gears on it, and they are actually advanced. So whenever you advance the cam gears on, whenever you advance the cam timing on any engine, it's always going to shift the power band earlier in the RPM range. So you're gonna make your peak power earlier than you would as if they were zero or retarded a little. If they were retarded, it would go the other way. You would make peak power later, etc. So anyways, we got the car on the hoist and we are going to be tearing into it and installing this turbo kit from, I believe it's Rev 9. I don't exactly know what kit this is. If I do talk to the customer and get a link or something, I will include it in the comments. But anyways, this is just a B20 VTEC Civic Si. And all I did really was remove the cold air intake, and I installed the intercooler pipe, just kind of mocking some stuff up right now. But I did take the exhaust manifold off. It is actually sitting right here. So this is the header that was on the car. So I removed that, and I removed the cold air intake. That's pretty much all I did, other than removing the bumper as well. So those are like the first couple things you guys got to do when you put a turbo kit on these cars, is the front bumper's got to come off, the exhaust manifold has to come off, and your air box has to come off for the cold air, or your factory air box needs to come off too. So anyways, we are going to be moving on, and I'm going to be showing you guys some of the parts that come with this kit. It is just a basic eBay kit, so it's got a cheap turbo, cheap manifold, cheap wastegate, cheap intercooler. Everything's just kind of cheap stuff. But I'm very surprised so far of how well everything is bolting on. There is a couple little things that I've run into, and I wanted to let you guys know about them. But so far, a lot of this stuff is pretty bolt on. So excuse the mess on the bench. I actually have some cylinder heads from an LS that I'm building for a car that's sitting right over there. I got an aluminum L33 for the new car. So I'm very excited to show you guys that very soon. But anywho, so this is the turbo and the manifold. So the manifold is just a cast iron setup. Wastegate venting under all four runners, which is a good thing. You don't want to get these cheap manifolds with the wastegate only venting on like one or two runners. And then I just proceeded to bolt the turbo kit, or the turbo, onto the manifold. That's the first step that I'm doing here. And one of the problems that I ran into is they come with these little studs, and the nuts and washers but you can only use 3 of them, because if you go to install the stud on this one here, which is on, you know, the bumper side of the downpipe side of the turbo here, it doesn't fit. You can't actually fit the nut. So there's no way that this would actually go on here and fit. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna run to the hardware store and take this stud with me, and I'm gonna match up the thread pitch. I believe this is probably like an M10 by 150 or something like that. I don't know exact thread pitch, but just take the stud that they supply you with to the hardware store, and I'm gonna get a bolt that with an Allen head on it. So an Allen head will not have as big of a head on it. I already tried using like a normal flanged style bolt, and it as well will not fit. So you guys can see it's crooked here. It's not gonna fit. I could probably grind down the head of the bolt to get it to fit, but I'm just gonna go get an Allen head bolt to run here, and we'll be all good there. So some of the other stuff that I'm running into, I will think of here in a second, but I did put the turbo and the manifold already onto the engine just as a mock-up with the 3 bolts, just to see kind of how everything is fitting, and everything fits good. With this turbo, this is one of the smaller turbos here. I don't know exactly what size it is. It says T3, T4. Serial number is right there for you guys if you want to get this same exact turbo. Like I said, these turbos are kind of hit and miss, but they are a specific kit that works with a specific turbo. So if you run any size larger turbo than the one that they give you with this, it will hit the block. So that's one thing that you got to look out for. This is a kit that actually can retain air conditioning and power steering, but right down here where the webbing is on the block, like right here and right here, the turbo will hit if you run anything larger than the turbo they supply. So I'm gonna get this thing jacked up in the air quick. I'm gonna show you some more. So like I said, we got the bumper off, and I already got the intercooler that they supplied mounted to the car. I always try to suck these intercoolers as far in as possible, mounted off of the crash bar. So this is about as close as we can run the intercooler to the core support, with still being able to get the coupler attached and fit the bumper. So this bumper was actually already cut, so it doesn't have any of the grill or like the webbing inside of there. This car must have been boosted previously, and we're just kind of, you know, reboosting it, I guess. Normally when you mount the intercooler as far in as possible, you can actually keep the webbing, or keep most of the webbing inside the bumper. I like that look a little bit better because it kind of hides the intercooler a little bit more, keeps it sleeper. But anywho, so we got some of the piping already kind of mocked up, but I have another pipe up here. So I have this pipe, which is the one that goes on the passenger side up through the tunnel here, or the engine, into the engine bay, and you guys can see the issue that we're running into. This pipe is too far forward if we mount it in this position. So we can get around this by removing this torque mount right here, because that's what it's hitting. It's actually hitting on the torque mount. This car has solid mounts all around, and it has the other torque mount, so I think we'll be okay just kind of removing or either notching the torque mount a little bit so we can fit that pipe in there without it hitting. Like I said, this would probably be alleviated if the intercooler was mounted out a little bit farther, but then again, you run into issues with clearance on the bumper. So I don't know, I'd rather notch the little torque mount. This car's already got a lot of engine mounts and they're all solid. My 10-second Civic doesn't even have torque mounts on it. It just has the 3 mounts. So either notching or removing that one, you will notice maybe a very small bit, but it's not going to be much noticeable at all, at least from my experience. I've done quite a few of these turbo kits, and I usually don't have any issue. So this pipe will fit good, and the other pipe, which goes to the turbo side, so off of here down through here, normally I always ditch the washer tank. So the washer tank a lot of times will get in the way of, you know, fitting the intercooler pipes well, but this kit comes with smaller diameter piping on the cold side than it does on the hot side, or the smaller diameter piping on the hot side than it does the cold. So this is the pipe connected here. You have a little long 90 right here, and then you have a U on this side. And this pipe actually fits right up. I don't have to cut a damn thing with the turbo mounted on the passenger side. So what this is gonna do is it's just gonna kind of sit in here, and you can see we have clearance with the washer tank, and the pipe is level. It's not hanging down or hanging up. It's perfectly level, and you know, this will fit perfectly. So we don't need to ditch a washer tank. That is cool. Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited about that. Another thing with this Rev 9 kit is the downpipe off of the turbo on a lot of eBay kits. If you guys have any experience putting on an eBay turbo kit, the downpipes coming off of the turbo to go to your rest of your exhaust, usually they don't fit. Or they take modification and cutting and re-welding in order to get them to bolt on properly. This downpipe fits perfectly. Once I get the rest of the turbo kit back onto the car, I will show you how good the downpipe fits, but it fits literally perfect. I'm very surprised with that, and it gives clearance for the AC compressor and the power steering. So that is cool. This car does not have AC or power steering, but he could add it later if he wanted. So Rev 9 stepping their game up. I feel like a lot of these eBay companies are really trying to give out a better product, and it's really cool to see the difference from back in the day when I did my first turbo kit probably 10, 12 years ago to what they are now. They fit so much better now than they used to. Here are some of the other parts that we got. This is the oil feed line. This is the drain line. Another issue that comes about with doing these kits is if you have a steel oil pan, they give you an aluminum weld on bung. So welding aluminum to steel is not everybody's forte, and doesn't really work unless you have some fancy welder, which I don't. So this is gonna have to go, and we're gonna have to get a steel fitting, or just, you know, find something at the hardware store. A lot of times I can find some sort of steel fitting that can adapt to an AN or a pipe thread. So that's what we're gonna have to do. I've also, in the past, I've just drilled and tapped the oil pan instead of welding. You can do it either way. A lot of times when I weld them, even if I weld them perfectly, they seep oil just very slightly. So tapping them, usually I don't have any leaks. But the metal is also very thin on the oil pan, so you run that risk of, you know, I don't know. I've never had any issues doing it that way, but it is a risk that you take because the pan is very thin. Yeah. So we have all the clamps here, all the couplers for the intercooler. We even have an intake pipe to go off of the turbo, which is that one there. And then they also supply you an air filter to go on the turbo, which is very cool. This is like a super cool little street car turbo kit. The wastegate in here, they give you a bunch of different springs with. The wastegate there, all the hardware. So that one should work really good. This is the oil feed kit. They tell you that it's drilled for this turbo. Don't touch it, but if you need more flow, they give you, you know, it can be drilled out to a larger hole, not exceeding 5 millimeter. So that's cool. I have talked in a couple other eBay videos or eBay turbo kit videos about drilling those damn, you know, plates out. But this one says that this new improved feed kit, yeah, I feel like that's why a lot of these turbos go out, is because the feed line either over oils or under oils these turbos, and they haven't gotten it figured out yet. But they say that this one is a new and improved kit, and hopefully works out. The blow-off valve came in that box right there. It's already installed onto the pipe. Super easy, just 2 bolts to bolt that guy on. And they give you this vacuum line with it, which is kind of useless. Doesn't really do anything. And then they give you, I don't know what the hell's all in this. This is for the boost controller. I usually do not use these controllers because they don't really work that well. It's like a Turbo Smart style. I'd rather just spring the gate in order to make the boost that I want, and it'll be a lot more consistent, and it'll spool up good and shit like that. These boost controllers, sometimes they spike and they do all sorts of weird shit, so I don't like running them. And then in this package, they give you a fuel pressure regulator, which isn't needed. You do not need to use these, but it's cool that you can, you know, have it for a spare or put it on later kind of thing. I'm not going to put this on. but it does come with that little Rev 9 kit for some reason or another. Here's all the boxes. This is the box the turbo came in, so we have all the feed and drain gaskets. You get usually duplicates of this stuff when you order a kit. Oh, we have downpipe studs. So that's pretty neat. Another thing too is when you got those studs right there, but they don't fit the turbo a lot of times, so you have to get custom bolts for the downpipe as well. That is one thing I did not mention. The bolts they supplied with the downpipe are too long. So, I gotta find the bolts here. This is one of the downpipe bolts, and it's just a little bit too long to where it bottoms out on the threads in the turbo. So I'm gonna have to take this to the hardware store as well and get 5 of these bolts, about, you know, 2/3 of the size of this one, I would say, would probably be best. But you guys have to figure that out for yourself. Maybe your kit will come with better bolts than mine did. But for the most part, can't really beat this. I'm sure this kit was under $1,000. Well worth it so far. But I'm going to go to the hardware store, get some bolts, and then we'll move on to doing the oil feed and drain. And then, yeah, go from there. All right, guys, I just got back from the hardware store. I took the bike, so my hair is a little crazy. But anyways, I did get the right bolt for the turbo to the manifold. It's just one of these guys. There we go. Socket cap screw or something they're called. And now that guy fits right in there without hitting anything. So we can thread that up and tighten it down. I did also get some of these M8x125 flange bolts. These are going to be for the downpipe because the other ones were too long. So I ended up spending like $9 or something like that to get the right hardware, just right down the street at the local hardware store. So I'm just going to tighten these bolts up. I'm going to get the turbo kit back installed onto the car, and then I will catch up with you in a second. All right, guys, I got the oil feed line flange installed right here with these 2 bolts, and I also have the drain line installed. They have the fitting which adapts pipe thread to 10 AN right here, so I'm going to thread that up in there once I know the turbo is clocked properly. So that's another thing you got to do when you put these things on, is you got to clock them. So the turbo oil lines need to be straight up and down, or as close to straight up and down as possible. The way this manifold is set up, the feed line for the turbo has to be kicked ever so slightly this way. When you're looking at it when it's on the engine, it's going to be kind of kicked this way just a little bit. So that way we can run our feed line through this runner right here and have it bolt on right there. So hopefully that makes sense. But I wanted to just show you guys that quick, and I have all the compressor bolts loose right now in order to clock the turbo this way. So we're going to see where everything's going to be good, and we'll check it once it's back on the car. One thing that does suck with some of these kits is the drain line flange hits the compressor bolts. So you can only have this much distance of clocking. Otherwise you have to take out a bolt, spin it to the next set of bolts, you know, etc. So, yeah. Couple other things that I'm just letting you guys know about as I think of them. These intercooler piping kits, the one that the blow-off valve goes on, the blow-off valve always faces this way. A lot of people put this pipe on backwards, and the pipe will have the blow-off valve sitting up here, you know, like that, and it'll hit the hood. So that's another thing. This pipe can fit both ways, but the blow-off valve should always be off to the side to fit properly and not have hood clearance issues. Another thing is these eBay turbo kits come with a new exhaust manifold gasket, which goes onto the cylinder head. I do not use the ones that come with the kit. I use the factory one that came off of the engine. 9 times out of 10 you can reuse those gaskets and they don't have issues. But like I said, the ones that come with these kits are this like composite fucking cardboard material damn near, and they always blow out. So I always have issues with these, and I don't recommend using them. Most of the time I don't even run, actually I shouldn't say that. All the time, I never run a gasket between the manifold and the turbo, because the gaskets that come with those as well always blow out. And these surfaces are usually 99% of the time, they're always super flat. and you can just bolt this thing together with no gasket and they're fine. I've never had issues. None of my turbo cars have a gasket between the manifold and the turbo. None of them. And I don't have issues warping or nothing. It never leaks. It just works. Alrighty guys, I did get some more progress done on the car. I got the oil feed line installed. So you guys can see I was talking right about that one runner where the oil line was going to go through, and it did. Got it all tightened down. Everything's good to go. Now I just got to do the drain line, hook up the intercooler pipes, and I think that's it. This car did have a sandwich plate, an oil filter sandwich, because it is an LSV or a B20 VTEC. So it has the oil line running to the head back here. So there was an extra port on the sandwich plate that I could run the feed line off of, and I did that. Otherwise, they give you a T to just take the oil pressure switch out and do it that way. Works either way. So I got to figure out what we're going to do for a dump tube as well. And yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's probably a little bit long. I may continue going with it, or I may cut it off here and we'll pick up again when we finalize it. But good progress, and this thing should be a lot of fun when we're done. So leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you later. Have a great night and a better tomorrow.